Do you have the courage to change yourself? For the last few weeks, I've been talking about the Serenity Prayer, and today we're going to talk about the second part of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the courage to change the things that I can change. We're going to talk about what courage is and how to figure out what things you can change in your life and how to apply this principle starting today. Let's dive in and get started. Welcome to my channel. My name is James, and I help you find the pathway to inner peace. And today we are continuing our series on the Serenity Prayer. We're talking about the second part. God, grant me the courage to change the things that I can change. But what is courage, and how can I use it to change my life? See, I spent a large part of my life playing the victim, and I was always struggling to not be a victim in my life. I was always blaming other people for the life that I was living, and I was making everything outside of me responsible for the life that I had chosen to live. And it didn't work. In fact, it led me down a dark pit of despair and depression, and even to the point of almost committing suicide. Until I turned my life around. And part of it was discovering the courage to change the things that I can change. And today, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Before we get in, let's define what courage means. So, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, courage is having the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. When it comes to having true courage, you have to understand one of the biggest myths about courage is that it means facing life without fear. In fact, having courage means you face your fears and you still do the right thing anyway. You don't allow your fear to control you, but you still have fear. In fact, courage is facing your fears and learning to live and create the life that you desire despite what you're afraid of. But in order to have that freedom, you've got to break free of this myth about fear. Most of the people that you know throughout history who were deemed to be extremely courageous were also afraid. Think about people like John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi. These were all people that experienced tremendous amounts of fear, but they were deemed to be some of the most courageous people in our time. Also, look at one of my favorite stories. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, one of my favorite stories of all time, it's a story of the pathway to higher understanding. It's really what the story of The Wizard of Oz is all about. And one of the characters, the Cowardly Lion. And one of my favorite characters in that movie, by the way, is the character Lion. And one of the things that he does is he goes through this journey of growth. And so he goes through and he's so afraid and he's so afraid and he's so afraid. Yet he keeps doing the right thing anyway. And he gets all the way to the end of the movie and he sees the wizard and tells the wizard that he needs courage. And the wizard says, "Hey, you've already got courage inside of you. Look, you faced all these fears, and yet you still did what you needed to do anyway, even though you were afraid while you were doing it." And then he gives him a medal, and all of a sudden, he awakens up to realize that he has the courage within him. This is the truth of yourself as well. You have the courage within you already. You just have to realize it, release it, and allow yourself to do the right thing, even though you may still feel fear. I feel fear all the time. 10 years ago, I was so terrified of public speaking that I would not even get in front of my classroom and talk to people. When I started doing content online, I had to face that fear with courage. I still get a little bit nervous when I get in front of the camera or if I go on a live stream, but it's not nearly as powerful as it used to be. You see, when you start giving attention to the fear and you face it with courage, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and eventually it goes away altogether. See, in order to understand fear, you have to understand fear is a false belief, and it comes from the ego. The ego is just this sense of identity about who you are in relationship to the subject that you're dealing with. One of my favorite acronyms for fear is false evidence appearing real, because fear is just a false sense of something bad is going to happen. It's using your imagination to imagine something bad is going to happen. So all you have to do to eliminate the fear, move out of the fear, is to just switch up the image you're playing in your mind and in your imagination into something positive. And this is going to help move the fear out of the way so that you can face the situation you have to face with courage. So once you start understanding what courage is, what is it that you can change in your life? This is why we did this video right here, where we talked about our internal world. We have the mind, the heart, the spirit, and the body. And these are the four aspects of our inner being that we have the power to control and change. When we face these areas of ourselves internally with courage, we unleash the strength to be able to dictate the direction our life is going to go. But it's not always easy. In fact, sometimes it seems a little bit difficult. You see, when we face our inner fears, when we face our inner being, and we start working on our fears, and we start working on the aspects of ourselves that we can change, it can be a daunting task, because we start seeing the parts of ourselves that we don't like. We start seeing all these things about our lives that have taken us away from the life that we want. And it can be quite humbling, and it can be quite scary to look at. And we see the things that we don't like about ourselves, and then we can sometimes start feeling guilty or ashamed because we feel these things inside. You want to face these things without shame, without guilt. Just learn to listen to yourself and go inside and start making the shifts in the things that you need to do. There's a few things that we're going to talk about that's going to help you make these shifts. There's a few techniques that you can use starting today that are techniques I use myself to help make these shifts and to start facing my own inner demons. The first thing that we do is we start making lists of the different things that we see within ourselves that we need to change. The way we can tell, the things that make us afraid. The fears inside of ourselves are indicators of the things that we need to work on inside of ourselves emotionally. We need to start looking at our thoughts and our beliefs and understanding which pieces of our thoughts are benefiting us and empowering us and strengthening us, and which ones are weakening us. If we have thoughts that are weakening us, we need to reimagine those thoughts and rewrite those thoughts into more empowering thoughts and beliefs. If we have fears inside of us, then we need to confront what's causing that fear and change the beliefs that are making us afraid and give it a new meaning so that it no longer gives us afraid. The other thing is our bodies. We have to learn how to listen to our bodies. Our bodies are very intuitive, and our bodies can tell us when we're feeling well, when we're doing the right thing, and when we're not. Our body is actually a beautiful machine, and it has the ability to heal and fix itself whenever it's out of alignment. But you have to pay attention to what it's trying to tell you. There's a lot of people that's bodies are trying to tell them things, and they're ignoring what their body's saying. So we have to learn how to listen and go inside our bodies and listen to what it's saying. So there's a few things that we can do to do all these things as we continue our journey to growth, to finding peace within ourselves. First of all, we have to understand the emotional scale. I've talked about this in a few of my other videos. I've got a specific video coming out where I go deeper into this. I believe in what's called the emotional scale. Our emotions are really our internal guidance system to let us know when our thoughts are out of alignment with our spirit. God, who controls the spirit, has a certain view of your reality. And you, in your mind, create a view of reality. And when there is discrepancy between those two views, we feel a negative emotion. When those two worldviews are in alignment with each other, we feel positive emotion. Then, as we understand this about the emotional scale, we also understand that all the lower emotions, the negative emotions, are what we call the force emotions. So when you use these lower emotions, these out of alignment emotions, we have to use force to make things happen. When we work in alignment with spirit, when our thoughts and our spirit are in alignment with each other and we feel positive emotion, these are what we call the power emotions. These are the emotions that feel good and that empower us or help us, strengthen us, and make us better. So we want to focus on trying to feel our way through problems. We want to feel our way through difficulties and challenges and situations and find those positive emotions in the situation, and that's where we make our decisions. That's the direction that we want to head. So how do you transfer this fear into courage and strength? First of all, meditate on your fears. When it comes up, spend some time in quiet contemplation and how these fears came into your life, and meditate on how to express your courage with this fear. Another thing to do is to journal about it. I love journaling. It's one of the techniques I started doing a long time ago. I'm writing and writing and writing ideas and thoughts and different pieces of things. I also use automatic writing where I connect with spirits through writing, and I just allow my hand to write on the page, and sometimes it scribbles, and sometimes actual words start coming out, and even words, sentences, phrases, and the more you practice it, the more this happens. But journaling is a great way you can write out your fears. You have to realize that every fear happens inside your imagination. It's just a story you're telling yourself inside your mind. It's not actually real. But you can write that story down into your journal, and you can rewrite the story into something that's more empowering, and it's going to help you grow. So as you meditate in your journal, your fears are going to become less and less and less, and you're going to find the courage and the strength to stand up to those fears, step outside of those fears, and start living the life you want. If you want to know more about this and how to do it, make sure you check out my blog post at jamespruitt.com, where we went by everything that we just talked about and went a little bit deeper into how to make these shifts in your life. You can find a link to that blog post down in the description below. And thank you so much for watching our videos. If you're new here, make sure you give us a thumbs up and click that subscribe button so that we can see all of our videos coming up as we continue diving into the Serenity Prayer. In our next video, we're going to talk about the wisdom to know the difference between what you can and cannot change, how to develop that wisdom, what wisdom is, and how you can use it to continue your growth. So we see you in the next video. You have a fantastic week.